Hey, what's up YouTube? Dan the Fix-It Man. Got another quick video here for you. I'm going to show you how to replace your valve cover gaskets and spark plug tube seals on a 2004 Toyota Tundra. Now this will be the same for any first gen Tundra that has the 4.7 liter iForce V8, and it's really not that hard of a job. Let's go ahead and get into it. Now this air intake is not necessarily something that you have to take off, but I'm going to take it off so that you can see a little bit better of what I'm doing, especially over here on the passenger side. Now in order to get to this air intake tube, I have to take off this top cover, which we also have to have out of the way for this side. So that's just two 10mm nuts. Let's just pull those off. We're also going to take off this little 10mm bolt so that we can detach this line here from the air intake tube. All right, then we can disconnect all of the tubes that go into the air intake. Just be careful that you don't snap these off. Now we have this little electrical connector that's snapped in right here to the air box, and if you're careful you can take that out without breaking it. I'm just going to use this little pair of hose pliers to squeeze in the ends and wiggle that out. These little ends squeeze together. Moving on to this side, we can also disconnect this tube here and this little one here. All right, and then we should be able to break this loose. All right, we'll set that out of the way. Now this tube right here that just comes right out of the valve cover that goes into the air box, we could also just disconnect it from down here, just so that it's out of the way. So we'll just kind of set it up over here. Now, if you haven't already, it's a good idea to blow this surface off and get that nice and clean, whether you use a leaf blower or some compressed air, just to get rid of any dust and debris that might fall down into the valve train once you have the valve cover off. I've already done that, so let's keep moving here. We're going to disconnect each of these coil packs, and then we're going to take each of them out. They're held in place by a 10mm bolt, but we need to disconnect the electrical connector, and a lot of times these are very brittle, so I would exercise great caution here, and I use a little mini pry bar here to help pry them off. Otherwise, if you just push the button, sometimes they'll come off, sometimes they won't, and you might end up snapping them. We'll just use the little mini pry bar to help that. Once you get it loose, it'll just come right off. Okay, and once you have all those disconnected, you can kind of just tuck them up here out of the way. All right, now we can loosen and remove these 10mm bolts that hold each of the coil packs in. All right, now we can pull out all the coil packs. All right, now there's 9 10mm bolts that hold the valve cover on, 4 down below, 4 on the top, and then 1 here in front. Now they all have this little rubber washer, and the kit comes with replacements, so we're going to take those off as well. I'm just using these wobble fix extensions from Koken, and they're working pretty well. Now if you notice the bolt stays in my socket, that's also because I'm using this Koken nut grip socket. It's a really nice design. It has this little metal band around here, but there's these little BBs inside there that they actually hold on to a nut or a bolt, so you're less likely to drop stuff. There we go. All right, and then this should just come right off. Just watch your lines here. And the gasket got stuck on here. We'll just pull that off. Now we need to pop out all of these spark plug tube seals, and that's sometimes easier said than done. They're pretty rock hard. Now sometimes you can get lucky and just pry underneath and pop them out, but I don't know if we'll get lucky. Sometimes they just come apart. Yeah, these are just prying apart, so. But if you can get something started in the end without damaging the sleeve of the valve cover, that seems like that works pretty well. And then just pry it out. And that's what it'll look like. And we didn't scratch up the interior sleeve, which is great. Now we're still gonna need to pry these tabs up on each of these little metal tabs. I'm just using some flat nose pliers to bend those up so that the new seal can go in. And we didn't mangle that too much, but let's give it a try here on the next one. I'm just using this little Lisle stout little pry bar. It seems to do the trick. Also using this little Mayhew demo driver. Also has a striking cap on the back. Let's see if that'll pop up now. There we go. Number 2. Now you would think that I would just pry these all up first, or bend these tabs up first, but they're really hard to get on. So it seems like we can still pry out the old seals without too much trouble, and then we can bend those up so that we have room to put in the new seals. Now we're going to clean this up, especially this channel. I'm just going to use this little microfiber rag in here with some brake cleaner. So now we're going to take the new gasket. Only goes in one way, but just kind of line that up and snap it in place. Just make sure you press that all the way in. If you flip it upside down, it should all stay in. Looks good. All right, now important note on these spark plug tube seals. This little bump area, this goes facing up like this. If you do it like this, you'll have a hard time getting this side started on the spark plug tube seal when you install it. They'll probably work upside down, and I have seen people install them upside down, but this is the correct way with the fel-pro set to install it. I'm just going to use a little bit of engine oil around the outside, and those should just press right in. Really doesn't take too much to seat those all the way. And then what I'm going to do is use this little brass drift and just pound these little tabs back down. And there it is. Just don't go too far to where you're digging into the seal. That really wasn't that hard at all. You know, it's harder getting the old ones out than it was putting the new ones in. Now, if you're having a hard time pushing these on, which you really shouldn't, you can use a socket. This is a 30mm. Looks like it would work pretty well to tap those in. I didn't need it at all. They just pressed all the way in, and they're all the way flush. They look good, and these should work great. So let's go get the engine cleaned up so we can install this. All right, now we're just gonna clean around the perimeter here, and then we're also gonna pull out these 2 little half moons, and we're gonna put some new RTV, or the Toyota FIPG formed in place gasket material. There's also some gasket material here in the corners. You see right here, this old RTV, we need to get that out. Sometimes you can just use your finger like that. Now there's also some of that same material down here in this corner. Just this little mini pry bar works pretty well. All we're trying to do is get that material out of there. There we go. Now you want to be careful here. You don't just want to go spraying brake cleaner into your engine. So just spray a little bit on a little rag or a paper towel, and then just go around the perimeter here and just take some care that you're not knocking anything down inside the engine. Now, it's probably not a bad idea to cover the camshafts here with maybe another rag or some paper towels, but we're just being really careful to make sure that nothing falls down in there while we're cleaning this up. All right, now you see here at the back, we have these 2 little half moons, and there's some RTV that's holding these in here too. We're just gonna try to knock this off out of the engine, and then we're also gonna pull these out, and we're gonna reseal them. Grab a hold firmly, and just wiggle it and pull it out like that. Same with this one. Grab a hold, give it a little wiggle, and it should come right out like that. Now we also want to grab this RTV here. Just don't want that falling down inside the engine. A little bit over here too. All right, now we need to clean up these little half moons. And we're going to put some new RTV on there. This is what I'm going to use, the Permatex Ultra Black Oil Resistant. Now the Toyota does make their own. It's called Formed in Place Gasket Packing Material. It's FIPG, but this stuff works fine. I've been using it quite a while. Looks good. All right, those are nice and clean. We're gonna go ahead and put a nice little coating of this Ultra Black Permatex on here. All right, those are ready to go back in. All right, that looks good. All right, now we're gonna do some of the same Permatex right down here in the corners. You don't need too much, just a nice little glob in that corner. And then same thing up here. That should be good. Now we can put our valve cover back in. Just bring the valve cover right back down. All right, I'll just slide right over those spark plug tube seals, and that looks good. Now we need to change these little rubber washers that come in the kit, and I think the easiest way is just to hold on to the washer with a pair of pliers and back the bolt out, if we can do that. That was pretty easy. The new one just pushes right on. We'll do that with the rest of them. Okay, we can go put these on now. Just get all these started by hand first. All right, now I'm just gonna get these snug with the ratchet. Now I'm just kind of doing a star pattern from the outside in. Okay, now I just went through and snugged everything just by hand, very lightly, kind of a star pattern, but kind of going from the outside in. The torque spec on this is 53 inch-pounds, which is really right around 4 foot-pounds, which is very, very little. Now, I do have this little inch-pound torque wrench, but I hate it. I can't really feel when it's clicking, and sometimes it causes me to overdo it. So in my case, I'm just gonna go by feel. So I'm just gonna go through here and gonna do what I think is about 53 inch-pounds in this star pattern, starting from the outside, working your way in. Okay, that feels about right to me. If you don't have a lot of experience or a lot of experience with feel, go ahead and get yourself an inch-pound torque wrench. Just make sure it's a good one, because those cheap ones like the one I have, they just don't work very well, and you just don't have a very good feel for when that's clicking. So in our case, I think we're good. It feels nice and snug. We can always go back and retorque that if we need to, but definitely don't think I overdid it. So I think we're good to keep moving here. And we're gonna put the coils in next, and then we'll get those hooked up. Just go ahead and put those right back down. I'm also going to reconnect this tube right here. And then we can put these bolts in that hold the coils in place. Remember, this is aluminum that we're going into, so don't try to use a power tool on this, at least not to get it started. Just go through and make those snug. All right, now we can put our air intake tube back on. Get that clamp lined up, like so. And we can get this snug. And then this one right here, we can connect that tube. Just carefully push that back on. And this clamp, you can use your hand, slide that back up. This little plastic snap, just line it up and click it into place like that. And then we've got this tube right here. Just connect that, and then the larger one, just push that one on. And that's all back together except for the top, which we're going to leave that off because I think we need that off in order to access the driver's side. But the passenger side is done now, and we can move on to the other side. Now I'm just going to try to tuck everything up here out of the way. For removing this one, I think I'm going to try to just take off this evap line. I'll just disconnect it here. Comes off this little connector here, so we'll pull that over here out of the way. Now I think I can flex these enough to get the valve cover out from underneath here without having to take these off. And then this tube here, we need to disconnect this. Looks like we can either disconnect it from the valve cover or over here on this side. This might be easier just to disconnect it over here for right now. There we go. Just gonna hook onto this harness right here and pull this back a little bit. Give us a little bit more clearance over there. I'll just go ahead and take this off here too. That came off pretty easily. I'm just gonna set it up here on top of the engine out of the way. I think everything else looks good. We should be able to slide this out as soon as we take off all these bolts. This has kind of like a cushion or something over it. I'm gonna pull that off. Looks like the PCV valve. I'm just taking off this little cover or cushion so that we have a little bit more access to get at this first bolt here. And this was already very loose. Now we've got one here at the front on the end, just like we did on the other side. Now on the last one, I'm just going to use this little universal socket, Coke and nut grip as well. Got it. All right, there's the last one. All right, we should be able to rock this loose. There we go. And then these lines, yeah, I think they're going to be loose enough. Let's pull out the dipstick. Should put that out of our way. And then as soon as you're clear of those spark plug tubes, just kind of come up here at an angle and we're free. Let's go clean up that side of the engine. We'll put the RTV in the right places. We'll clean up those half moons and then we should be good to put this back on. All right, so our old gasket actually stuck on here. We can pull that off. That's what it looks like when it comes off in little chunks. Just spending a little bit of extra time there cleaning off those little half moon recesses, but that looks good. That's way too much. Perfect. Try to give you a close-up here, but that's the spot right there where we need to put that silicone. And sometimes I'll just kind of press on that with my finger, just not only to make sure that it sticks, but that it also pushes all the way into that little corner, just to make sure we don't have any leaks. That one looks good. Same thing with the bottom right down here. All right, then we can bring our valve cover right back down with our new gasket. And just carefully bring that down at an angle and line it up. Now once you have it lined up with the spark plug tube seals, just press those seals so that they slide over those spark plug tubes, and it should feel nice and firm like that. All right, now I'm just going to get all of these bolts started by hand. All right, we're just going to do the same type of tightening sequence, but I'm just going to get these snug first. All right, now I'm gonna go through and I'm just gonna do what I think is about right. Remember, only about 4 foot-pounds is pretty light. But if you've got an inch-pound torque wrench that you like to use, I would recommend that. Click, click, 53 inch-pounds on the money. All right, well, I'm happy with that. We can put this little foam cover back on. Let me grab the ignition coils and we can put those back in. And we can get these all started. All right, now I'm going to unhook this that was holding my wire. All right, and then we can put this tube back on. Pretty easy, it just slides right on. And you can do the clamps by hand. And this end just slides on over here. Same thing, you can just swing that clamp around, and that's good. Don't forget to put your dipstick back in. And our evap line here. Reconnect that. We also have this right here that was holding the evap line. We just need to put this bolt back in here. I also had a bungee cord on that holding it out of the way. So we can put this one back together now. And then the engine cover. Put these two little nuts on there. All right, well, that looks good. I think we've got everything back together and got everything out of the way, but I'm gonna wait until tomorrow to take this for a test drive just to give that Permatex a chance to set up overnight, and then we'll come back tomorrow and go for a quick drive, and then we'll wrap this up. All right, well, we had a nice little test drive there, and happy to say that these are dry. Got a little bit of water dripping back there from our condensation, but no oil at all dripping down. I don't see any oil at all. And we're done. Fortunately, we do not have any oil seeping out on either side. Everything looks really clean. Now, this did take a good chunk of time. I did spend about an hour, hour and a half on either side, and that included cleaning up the valve covers and getting them prepped and ready to go back on. But I'm real happy with how everything turned out. Glad I finally got this done. I mean, I've got 304,000 miles on this truck. I'm the original owner, by the way, and this is the first time that I've done those valve cover gaskets. You know, I probably should have done it a while ago, but what I did is when I noticed that it was leaking the first time, I went through and I snugged each of those bolts, and that seemed to slow down the leak for quite a while, but eventually those valve cover gaskets were completely squished flat and it wasn't sealing anymore, and so of course we had to get this done. I do hope you guys like this video. It does take quite a while to film and edit these videos, and I hope that this was helpful to you. If it was, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you don't mind. That does help me out. I'll get a link in the description where you can pick up some of the parts and tools used in this video as well. Thanks so much for watching, and good luck.